What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is of course the 2021 Mazda CX-30 Turbo. Huge thanks to Mazda for providing me here with the CX-30 Turbo to review for you guys today. So about the 2.5 turbo version of the CX-30. So I already reviewed the regular CX-30 about a year and a half ago. It's a very nice vehicle, and so now I'm just very excited that they have added in the turbo engine, something that many people were requesting, and so now it's here, and it sweetens up the package of the already awesome CX-30. So first, as far as the looks go here on it, I love the way these things look. It's so distinctive, with everything else trying to look so bold and rugged these days. I think the simplicity and the beauty of this Mazda design really just stands out in its own way. I love how you have that pointed nose up front there, and how you even have the little parts of the headlights that kind of extend out, and it kind of forms a bit of a nose there that looks really sharp. I also love the little elements you have there in the headlamps, and little LED turn signal strips there in the bottom part of the front bumper. All very, very, attractive looking, and all unchanged from what you would get on a regular CX-30. I also like how low this hood is. You really notice that in the side profile, just how much it drops down compared to just how, much taller it is towards the back there. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, also coming down to the sides, one unique thing here with the turbo version is that you have these black 18-inch wheels. On the turbos, you have to get black wheels. There is no choice, although I believe you can option on a BBS wheel if you want for a costly upcharge. But otherwise, these are the wheels you're stuck with, but I think they look pretty good, especially with this soul red paint on this CX-30. It looks really, really sharp. And then also you'll see that they have some more black accents here on the turbo. So like the side mirrors here are painted black, and then going out to the back, again, very attractive. I like those slender taillights you have there on the CX-30, and then also you have some larger exhaust tips here on the turbo version as well to give it a little bit of a sportier look out back there. Otherwise though, I think that hatch is also just really attractive, the way it kind of comes to a point there towards the Mazda badge. And again, just this vehicle is just so much more curvy and everything than all the normal boxy stuff you have these days, which just is a little less beautiful, I think. They're cool in their own ways, but I think that the beauty of this vehicle is going to age really well. Overall, I really love the styling here of the CX-30. All right, so start up and go for a drive. The CX-30 Turbo here has the same new Mazda key as all the other Mazdas, so just hard plastic here, but it's a cool looking key. It has the buttons on the sides, which I think is kind of unique and interesting, and nothing on the back there, but it is kind of light. I wish this was wrapped in some kind of vinyl or something, and the old Mazda key was a little bit smaller and easier to fit in your pocket. But anyway, it is still a nice key, and it is of course keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start here in the CX-30 Turbo. So you just put your foot on the brake, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. And if you're curious to hear about the interior in the CX-30 Turbo, my wife and I already did a full in-depth interior review on a regular CX-30, and the Turbo version is basically identical. There's a little trim ring around the engine start button, and you have the option of a heated steering wheel. It does not come standard, but if you go for the Premium or the Premium Plus versions of the Turbo here, you get the heated steering wheel. So that's a very nice feature to have, especially here in the wintertime like it is right now. It's very nice to have. So yeah, but otherwise it's identical, so you can go watch the old video there if you want to hear all the thoughts on this interior. It's a super nice interior though, and is one of the nicest in its segment, and it's a really nice place to be. All right, so setting off here in the CX-30 Turbo. So the first thing you notice, I think the first thing that I notice is the steering feels a little bit lighter. And I noticed this with the 2021 Mazda 3 Turbo as well. And I don't know if it's a 2021 change or if it's a turbo change. Because I believe they did also retune some stuff for 2021 models just to make them a little more comfortable. But I think that was mostly suspension stuff. So I don't think that that really affected steering, but it might have. Regardless, I like the steering in the turbos much better. It's a little bit lighter, which is appropriate for this type of vehicle, but it's no less precise. It still feels really good, and it is still really nicely weighted. I just think it's just a little bit easier to use than the previous, regular CX-30 and old Mazda 3 with their heavier steering. But anyway, other things here, it's a nice smooth ride. You have a little bit of a higher seating position here like you want in a crossover, and good visibility as well, although the windows are a little bit on the smaller side, especially on the sides here, a little bit more narrow than the larger glass you're probably going to be used to in other crossovers in this segment. But I mean, nice than A-pillar is very easy to see forward. View out of the back is very good as well, and so no complaints there whatsoever. And It's nice and quiet and refined in here too. You know, you feel some bumps here and there and stuff, but I mean, it is so good at soaking all that up and just making this feel very just relaxed and refined. Throttle response is also immediate here, really. I mean, especially whenever you're at lower speeds and stuff, but I mean, you just tap on that gas, you immediately get a nice response and exactly what you're expecting. And that's part of how Mazda really engineers and designs their vehicles and how you're supposed to interact with their vehicles. It's all very natural feeling, like the brake pedal. It's a little bit of a heavier brake pedal than some other vehicles, but that means that you use your calf muscle instead of your shin muscle, which is weaker. And so, you know, it's less driver fatigue in the Mazda here when you're using the brakes a lot. And same thing goes, you know, throttle response is exactly how you expect it to be. And, you know, the steering all feels good. Everything is very human-centric and just feels very natural and organic whenever you're driving this vehicle. It's also, I mean, we're at some fairly low speeds here, like 20 miles an hour, but you know, you don't hear any road noise or wind noise. You know, it's just all feels very nice and just a very pleasant place to be. But I went ahead and put it up into the sport mode, and let's turn down onto this back road here and see how the CX-30 Turbo does. And here we go. Wow, wow, all right, very responsive. Wow, yeah, this thing gets up and moves. Oh man, this is impressive. So CX-30 Turbo here runs the 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and it does 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque on 93 octane gas. If you go for 87 octane gas, which is totally fine to run in this, they say, you get 227 horsepower, and then you're going to get 310 pound-feet of torque. So you only miss out on 10 pound-feet of torque with that. And they actually say that the power curves between 87 and 93 are very similar up till about 4,000 RPMs, and then over 4,000 is where you kind of get a little bit of a harder pull from the 93 octane. But you know, in most people's normal driving, you're not going to really be you know, revving this thing super high, and so you're actually, you know, in realistic driving scenarios, not going to notice the difference in power between 87 and 93, which is a really nice touch that they tune it for the 87 and stuff, and it's totally fine to run on that, and it's pretty cool that that's an option. And so yeah, it's a very impressive acceleration. Now, Mazda does not like quoting 0 to 60s. They don't like 0 to 60 times because it doesn't accurately portray what you're feeling. They say they prefer to refer to acceleration in as far as G and the amount of G forces you're feeling. I'm not going to give you that number because it's pretty irrelevant compared to, you know, without comparing it with anything else. But what I will say is that, you know, Motor Trend did do a 0 to 60 time of the Mazda 3 Turbo, and that was about a 5.9 seconds 0 to 60. You know, this is a tiny bit heavier, so I would say, you know, maybe something 6 second, you know, or low 6 second range for those that are trying to put it in the context of a 0 to 60 time. But I will say that it feels very strong. It's very, very impressive. I think for the type of vehicle, it's way more power than you get in basically everything else. It's way more torque than anything else in this segment, luxury segment or non-luxury. But anyway, we're coming up some corners here. Let's see how the CX-30 Turbo handles them. Very flat handling. And it has good grip too, considering this only is running 215 wide, you know, all season tires. I mean, 215s are pretty skinny, but it's still, I mean, it feels really good. It feels so dynamic, so natural, just going around these corners. It loves it. Yeah, it really does a good job. And so also whenever you're in sport mode like I am now, it actually has this G vectoring control system, which it uses all the time. But in sport mode, it's a little bit more aggressive to allow the you know, back end to rotate a little bit more and kind of give you a little bit of a better turn in there. So it's a little more aggressive in the sport mode, you know, for all that kind of stuff. And also the way that they set up even like their traction control system, if you're accelerating out of a corner, they will allow you to get some wheel spin because they assume that you want full power and you're trying to, you know, get out of a situation, and so they're not going to pull back on power like a lot of other systems do with their traction controls. And so, I mean, everything about this just feels so sporty and dynamic, and that's where the CX-30 Turbo is going to blow the doors off of all its competitors. You know, it's really, really impressive. Just this much power in a vehicle this small is pretty cool. I mean, these only weigh about 3,500 pounds. I think it's 3,505 to be exact, which means you have about 117 pound increase over the non-turbo CX-30. But I don't feel the extra 100 pounds. I really don't. It feels super dynamic. This feels for some reason like it's even a little bit more jumpy than the Mazda 3 Turbo. Like that was strong, but for some reason in the CX-30 here, it just feels a tiny bit stronger. Now, I am also testing this in the winter time. It was a little bit warmer whenever I was testing the Mazda 3 Turbo, so that might account for some of it. You know, it's only 25 degrees Fahrenheit today, so this engine is performing at its absolute peak, and so that could certainly have something to do with what's going on here. But man, this thing feels so strong. The steering, again, I just love going around corners in this thing. It's less work in the turbo version than it is in the non-turbo with its heavier steering. This feels fantastic. I love taking this thing around corners. It's a lot of fun. Another acceleration. Yeah, this thing flies. Oh man, by far the most fun crossover in this segment, hands down. I can tell you that right now without even thinking twice about it. I've never had this much fun in a little crossover like this. It's really that impressive. But anyway, I was so taken aback by the acceleration and everything earlier, I forgot to mention that this vehicle has a 6-speed automatic transmission. That is one area where this is different than a lot of the competitors, which either run like a dual clutch thing, or they run some type of CVT or something like that, and with most of the others out there. So to have a real automatic transmission is great, because there's, especially only having 6 gears, there is no hunting around. It just relies on that engine torque to, you know, and sometimes a downshift or two, but I mean, it usually doesn't really need to do much shifting because it's in one of those gears, it has enough power and it still flies. You don't need a million ratios for this thing to feel fast. It's, you know, just got the 6 gears, but it just takes off. Yeah, this thing is a champ. Oh man, but yeah, so it's really, you know, this transmission, I don't really have too many issues with it. In the sport mode here, it also does hang on to the higher gears here, so, you know, it's just hanging out at 3,000 RPMs just for the fun of it, just to have more power on tap. But with how torquey this motor is, honestly, I think to get the best acceleration performance, you're probably even better off leaving it out of sport mode, because it'll rely on that low end torque more and really give you that seat of the pants push that, you know, really helps you to feel like you're flying. But I mean, in sport mode, it still is really strong too, but man, the way this thing rockets out of a corner. This is so dynamic. And they did say that the CX-30 Turbo, they didn't do any suspension changes aside from just making it basically account for the weight of the extra, you know, weight over the nose for the turbo here and stuff. But otherwise, you know, they say they try to make it feel pretty close to the regular CX-30. But honestly, the regular CX-30 didn't feel this much fun. I mean, yes, the power is definitely making it more exciting, but this just feels a little lighter on its feet, surprisingly. I know the exact opposite of what you expect. The heavier version of this feels lighter on its feet, but it does. I think it's that steering and just how, you know, that back end can rotate a little bit more here with the extra power. Really, really impressive. But I'm going to try out the manual mode here very briefly. So it's not quick. Downshifts are actually pretty immediate. This is a typical Mazda transmission, so there's no surprises here. If you have any experience with any of the other ones, it's good. It's just the upshifts don't give you a shift as fast as you'd like. So personally, I would just leave it in automatic mode. But if you do want to, you know, have the paddle shifters here, you do get them in, you know, these higher trims of the CX-30. It is nice to have, but not a must-have in my opinion. But we're also, you know, doing like 30, 35 on this rougher road. And it still is nice and quiet. You don't really hear too much road noise, but I'm going to take it out of the sport mode here. And it still gives you a downshift immediately and takes off. I mean, it's pretty impressive. You know, you don't need to be in any sport mode. It just is good in its normal mode, which is sometimes rare in other vehicles. And so, you don't have to fiddle with a bunch of stuff. You just hop in this thing, drive, and it always responds. It gives you what you want, and it's very satisfying to drive. I really, really love that. But anyway, outside of the sporty dynamics and stuff, hitting some potholes and stuff now, Still very smooth. I mean, again, this is a subcompact crossover, so you're gonna feel bumps and stuff. You know, it's not going to, you know, feel like you're floating on air or anything, but it is still, you know, very good and about as good as you can expect in this segment. And honestly, it's a much more smoother ride than what you're going to be getting in a lot of the competitors. So the Mazda just continues to feel like it's a luxury car that's not charging luxury money in many ways. I mean, you know, with the amount of refinement, the lack of wind noise, you know, if you're in some of the other, you know, competitors of this vehicle, you'd have way more noise in here. All right, so now we're out on the highway, and it's still a very nice cruiser. I mean, it's a pretty windy day, and you still don't even really hear much wind noise. Road noise is very subdued. I mean, this is really unheard of refinement in this segment of vehicle. It really is. And so it's a really nice companion on the highway. But one important thing to note, so I do have the adaptive cruise control system on right now, which is a really nice feature to have here. And then if you go for the top premium plus trims, you also get a traffic jam assist feature. And so that'll basically do the steering assist for you at 40 miles per hour or less on the highway. So it'll stay in your lanes for you and help with that steering assist and stuff, and do a little bit more helpful steering on the highway, but it's only up to 40 miles per hour. After that, you're on your own. It will have a lane departure alert, and that'll kind of nudge you if it sees you going off, but it's an alert. It's not something that you can just leave on and rely on it to help you, you know, be guided in your lane or anything. So, you know, some of the other competitors do offer, you know, actual steering assist, lane tracing assist, that type of stuff. You do not get that here in the Mazda. So the Mazda is going to be for someone who enjoys driving themselves and doesn't want any kind of assistance really as far as, you know, actual steering assist. But like I said, it will have lots of safety features to, you know, help you out. And it also does have, like on the Premium Plus versions here, you get some more advanced safety features like the 360 camera. You also get an automatic reverse braking thing. So if it, you know, sees an object behind you there, it will automatically apply the brakes, you know, if you're like going 6 miles per hour or less, so you don't back into stuff, those types of things. So it does have a lot of very advanced safety tech. I just wish that they would have a little bit more steering assist, but that is something that I'm sure will be coming down the road. But in the meantime, I mean, I personally don't like having a ton of assistance. I like driving myself, so I think, you know, the Mazda will suit me very well, and it'll suit you well as well if, you know, that's something that you enjoy. But yeah, it's just really, though, so nice, you know, even just like climbing hills and stuff. Not that you need a ton of power to climb a hill, but, you know, just having this wave of torque with 320 pound-feet of torque in this thing, it really feels nice. If you're someone who appreciates power, you know, you're really going to enjoy this. There's nothing wrong with the regular CX-30. You know, it was fine. I mean, it still had one of the highest horsepower figures in its segment of vehicles still, you know, as far as their base engines go. It was still a good, solid engine, but the turbo here is a lot of fun if you can make the jump up, and you get the heated steering wheel option. All those types of things are nice to get here in the turbo as well. So personally, if I were getting a CX-30, I think I would certainly go for the turbo. But anyway, before I get ahead of myself here, even though I really do love this thing, I am going to continue to drive it here over the rest of the weekend, and I'm going to, you know, assess it a little bit more and see if there's anything else about it that I like or don't like, and I'll come back and give you guys my final thoughts, as well as my real world fuel economy, and also my thoughts on the pricing and its competition. Alright, so I've been driving the CX-30 Turbo for a couple more days here. I've put about 60 miles on it in that time, and I've really enjoyed it, you know, just running errands, doing a little bit more highway driving and stuff. It's a really nice thing to cruise around in. I really like that, you know, they set it up to be a little bit more relaxed than the Mazda 3 Turbo. And so, you know, not that the Mazda 3 Turbo was, you know, stiff or too sporty or anything, and quite the contrary. It was actually very comfortable, but this just is a little bit softer. Having the higher ride height, the extra practicality of, you know, the larger hatch and stuff is certainly nice, and I think the CX-30 is great if you want a little more ground clearance than what you get with a Mazda 3. You know, I think this can be a little bit more versatile, help you out with, you know, getting you to your adventures and things like that. And speaking of adventures, if you do happen to find yourself off the beaten trail, there is this off-road traction management button you can press, and that is actually pretty cool. So it doesn't come on immediately the second you press it, but it will come on if that button is pressed whenever you are, you know, having some kind of wheel spin or wheel slippage. Then it will detect that and start to lock up that four-wheel drive system. And what it can do is, if you're stopped or if you're at very low speeds and you're taking off, it can actually lock that four-wheel drive system to give you the best traction possible. But then as you continue to gain speed, then it will slowly decouple that and, you know, loosen itself up. But it still continues to, you know, prioritize giving you a little bit of wheel spin so that you can continue to go on your journey and not have the traction control system just cut all power like some other vehicles do. This will like work through the wheel spin to help you to, you know, have the best traction possible. And so it's kind of cool. I like how Mazda says they tune their traction control system to give you traction and allows some wheel spin there if, you know, it deems that that is fitting for the type of goal that you're going for, of, you know, maximum acceleration or some type of, you know, getting out of a rut or something like that. And so I think it's a very cool system. That, again, that is one thing you don't get on the normal, you know, Mazda 3. So to have that on the CX-30 here is really nice. But as far as everything else goes, you know, I really enjoyed my time here in the CX-30 Turbo. In addition to having all that power, it's really nice to have that power whenever you're passing on the highway, because it just makes passing so effortless and so easy in this thing. I mean, it's one of those things you kind of like think about it, you know, for a split second, you're like, I want to pass that person, and then it's already done. It's just so quick. Having that passing power is really, really nice. And that's where this engine really shines, is whenever you're doing those lower RPM acceleration maneuvers at higher speeds and stuff. And so really love that. But the last two things to mention here are the fuel economy and the pricing here of the CX-30 Turbo. So first, we can talk about fuel economy here. So again, I've been driving this vehicle about 60 miles, and my fuel economy has been 21.8 mpg, which is pretty good considering these are rated at 22 in the city, 25 combined, and 30 on the highway. And so, you know, I'm basically getting that city number, and I'm pretty happy with that considering, you know, I did just do a lot of around town driving, backroad suburban stuff, some highway driving, you know, but not a ton. I wouldn't say it was 50-50 or anything like that. And so to still be getting, you know, that city rating pretty easily here in the middle of winter when, you know, the vehicle has to warm up longer and all that kind of stuff, I'm actually pretty happy with that. And I think this might actually even overperform its EPA ratings potentially, depending on how you drive and stuff. And it is still very cool that you can run 87 in it and basically have almost the same power curve under 4,000 RPMs. And so, you know, for normal commuting, you know, you'll save a good amount of money here. You get that turbo power still, but you don't have to pay, you know, those premium fuel prices. And so that is a nice little thing to consider here. Then the last thing to mention here is the pricing and how it compares to its competition. So when you include destination, these start at exactly $31,000, and then this one, as tested with the Premium Plus package, the top of the line one, and this Soul Red Premium paint, which is I think about $600, this one comes out at $35,595. So, you know, when you're comparing this to like the Kona with its turbo engine and things like that, this is a good bit more expensive, but none of them get even close to the amount of power you have here in the CX-30 Turbo, especially the torque. The torque is over and above what you get in any of the mainstream competitors. Even the brand new Bronco Sport has, you know, less power than this does, as far as the torque figure goes there. And, you know, so you get a very nice vehicle. I mean, I still maintain that the CX-30 in all of its forms is probably the nicest vehicle in this segment. It might not be the roomiest, but I think it's the nicest. And so I really love that. And then you add this turbo motor, and, you know, for those who want that extra power, again, you have class leading horsepower and torque here with this you know, CX-30 Turbo. And so that alone justifies the price on its own, because if you don't care about the turbo, you can obviously get one of these very affordably priced and very competitively priced with all the mainstream stuff. But really what Mazda's going for with this turbo trim is the premium competitors. So we're talking Mercedes GLA, we're talking BMW X1 and X2, and the Audi Q3. Compared to those, this is easily about $5,000 cheaper than all of those. And to even get one comparably equipped to the way this one is, like for example in a GLA, you're going to be spending about $45,000 for a comparable GLA. And yes, the GLA might have larger digital gauge screens and, you know, a few other little toys that maybe are a little high end. You can get some other features in those luxury competitors you cannot even get as an option in this, such as ventilated seats, you know, a little bit more ambient lighting, things like that, you know, aren't available here in the Mazda. But as far as if you're comparing apples to apples of, you know, feature versus feature, this is going to come in about $10,000 less than a comparably equipped GLA. And so, I mean, the value is huge there. And by the way, this has tons more power than the GLA, the Q3, X1, and X2. And so very impressive that, you know, you have, you know, that kind of a value proposition here with this. And yes, you don't have the brand prestige of having one of those German vehicles, but in avoiding those German vehicles, you also avoid their terrible depreciation. Because all three of those German brands, I mean, for example, according to CarEdge.com, the depreciation on like a GLA is, I think, 60% in the first 5 years, versus this, you're looking at like high 40s, you know, like maybe 48, 49% depreciation. And so whenever you're buying a vehicle, and if you're going to sell it down the road, that could be thousands of dollars that you're also saving, in addition to saving the 10 grand off to go for the Mazda over the Mercedes, for example. Then whenever you go to sell it, you also save yourself and, you know, get some of that money money back that you wouldn't get with the German competitors as well. So there's all those types of things to consider that, you know, to me, it just doesn't make sense to go for one of those German vehicles, especially when you're talking about their cheapest, you know, lowest trims. If you're going for the higher up German stuff, you know, there are some very appealing things there. But, and if you want some of the features that aren't available in the Mazda, I can see that as well. But, you know, if you're happy with everything that you get in the Mazda CX-30 here, I wholeheartedly think this is at least worth a test drive and a, you know, a strong consideration over those German competitors. And yeah, I mean, the way that I would do one, by the way, I wouldn't go for this Premium Plus trim because it gives you a bunch of safety tech like automatic reverse braking for cross traffic. It gives you the 360 camera, which is nice, the traffic jam assist, and, you know, one or two other little things. But basically, I'd save myself about $1,500 and go for the regular premium trim of the CX-30 Turbo. That's the one you want. That gives you the heated steering wheel, the Bose stereo, the head-up display, real leather seats, and a few other really nice goodies. And so that is certainly the one I would go for, because really going for a base CX-30 Turbo is really comparable to like a trim, like a preferred trim of a regular CX-30 as far as the equipment you get. So unlike the Mazda 3 Turbo, where you get a heated steering wheel, it's like standard in those just by going up to the turbo. In this, you have to add on that premium package to, you know, go up to that higher feature content. So one little thing to note there. But so, I mean, even if I got the Soul Red paint, I'd be paying about $34,000 for a premium CX-30 Turbo with the red, and you're looking at $33,500 if you go for a non-premium color. So, you know, there is some money to be saved there, and then you are coming in low 30s, and that's, again, just talking MSRPs. You know, you could also potentially even get some manufacturer incentives and things down the road, who knows. But either way, this is just a very solid vehicle, considering there's some others that try and charge, like a Buick Encore GX tries to go over 30 grand with, you know, half as much power, you know, not as much luxury, you know, just so many, there's so many worse picks in this segment. The CX-30 is just fantastic. It knocks out of the park. They have all their bases covered competitively, I think, and I think it's just a very compelling package as it is here, and it's a ton of fun as well, and it's so satisfying to drive. It's so relaxing to just, you know, do your daily commute in and all that kind of stuff. It is just such a nice vehicle, and I definitely recommend it. But yes, that's all my thoughts here on the CX-30 Turbo. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thanks to Mazda for providing me here with the CX-30 Turbo to review for you guys today. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.